Welcome to a new episode of Royal on Tour. This time we are on our way to Greece. In the last episode, we were still in Venice. We thought about sailing to Greece, but decided to go overland instead. This route will go through Slovenia, Croatia, Bosnia-Herzegovina, and just along the border with Montenegro and Albania to Greece. Not because it would be the fastest route, but because we had heard that the route along the coast would be so beautiful. So come on and join us. In front of us, we have a route of over 35 hours, which will take us several days and with several overnight stays. We went just to the supermarket before entering the border with Slovenia. And here we are driving into Slovenia. HR. Those letters are also standing on the license plates of the cars coming from Croatia. So this road sign indicated that we are on the way to Croatia. The border with Slovenia to Croatia. First we check out at the Slovenian border, then a piece of no man's land, and then the border to Croatia. Apparently that wasn't necessary. Once we crossed the border, it started to get a bit darker, and we decided to look for a place to stay overnight at a camper place.
We had a quick breakfast and then headed south again. We decided to take the toll road for this part of the journey to get to our destination a bit faster. The weather forecast for the next few days was lots of rain, so we decided to travel south as quickly as possible without many stops via the toll roads. After a long day of driving with a lot of rain, we decided to park at this parking place, which has also parking places especially for campers. Fun fact in this is that it was next to a bridge with a nice view, as you can see.
And this is the view the next morning. Wow, what an overview. We like that. And it is not raining now, so that's very special.
We were traveling in Croatia during harvest time in autumn, and so we saw a lot of fruit selling people along the street. As you can see, the rain was not gone yet, with all those clouds in the sky. Driving through agricultural areas, I do realize that rain is also needed to harvest at a later date. And then, after a few days of rain, the sun was coming out. After a coffee break, we continued our journey south. Now the weather forecast for the next days is so much better, we decided to skip the toll roads and choose for the coastal roads in Croatia down south. Enjoy the views, I would say.
Not only the rain stopped, but the whole environment changed too. This kind of trees, for example.
To finally arrive in Greece, we had to drive from Croatia through a narrow section of Bosnia-Herzegovina, Montenegro, and Albania to Greece. Now we had decided to stop in Albania today, so we had 3 border crossings in one day. This was our first crossing of the day.
We had never been to these countries before. We knew the names from the war in Bosnia in 1992 till 1994. We don't have it on camera, but along the way we saw several memorial needles that commemorate this war. What a beautiful road. You can see it winding all the way up the mountain.
After a long journey, with changing scenery, and a few hours later, we arrived at the border from Bosnia-Herzegovina to Montenegro. From here, we drove to the border with Albania. But at the border crossing to Montenegro, the officials said after passport control that we could drive through. But we could not drive through because the barrier did not go up. His colleague was just signaling us to drive through until he served the button to make the barrier go up. There were also a lot of road constructions in Montenegro. We will spare you all those kilometers we drove, but this gives an impression of the road we drove for kilometers. With all these bumps and potholes, the chassis of the camper had a pretty tough time. Never before we have been to this part of Europe. Montenegro is one of the countries that seemed more prosperous to us than Bosnia-Herzegovina when we saw buildings like this. Also here in Montenegro, we saw people selling fruit along the way. Unfortunately, we did not video the border crossing from Montenegro to Albania. After crossing the border, we noticed that it all seemed a bit poorer here and they did not really benefit from the prosperity. After several hours of driving, we arrived at a campsite in Albania. But the route to this campsite was very special. Because of all the rain of the past few days, there were big puddles on the dirt roads. On arrival at the campsite canteen, we were offered a meal. This speaks again of the hospitality in this region of Europe. When the sun went down, we were treated to a very beautiful sunset. Next to the campsite were some unusual objects which also looked something like dump sites. The next morning it turned out that we had been the only guests this night at the campsite. When we reached the campsite exit, the gate appeared to be locked. The campsite manager did not tell us by check-in the day before that he would lock the gate for our safety. Eventually, with some delay, we still left after the gate was opened, and we could continue our travel south to Greece. While making this video, we discovered that we did not film the border crossing from Albania to Greece. Here you see the first images of Greece.
After driving for so many hours and so many days, we finally arrived at a beautiful spot on the Mediterranean Sea. We decided to take it easy for a few days and enjoyed the view. How beautiful sunny it was here. The sea azure blue and the temperature around 20 degrees. We decided to walk around the village looking for a supermarket or a restaurant. What was very unusual for us is that just in the gardens of the houses, oranges and lemons grow. Look at these trees, how beautiful they are, shaped by the winds. While we were walking through the village, a local suddenly offered us a pomegranate, so we had to try it. Apparently, it was not only harvest time for the oranges and lemons, but also for the pomegranates. And yes, they were very delicious. Every evening, while we were standing at this spot, we were treated to a beautiful sunset. We were certainly not the only ones who found this spot. Every evening, new neighbors arrived. The temperature varied quite a bit. Sometimes it was above 20 degrees, but here it was barely 15 degrees, so I kept my coat on. And if it was too windy to sit outside, we would sit inside with the sliding door open. While we were in Greece, we explored the entire south coast of the mainland. We were pointed to this place to stay overnight. That was very nice. Only pity that the restaurant was not open in the evening, but only in the morning and with lunch. Because we liked the beach so much, we found another spot on the beach via Park for Night. Only the road to get there was a challenge, completely unpaved and far from civilization, but a very, very nice spot.
After our stay at the beach, we drove on for an overnight stay, where we arrived when the sun had already set. After a drive through this part of Greece, we arrived at a car park at Porto Sternes. After we arrived at the car park, we found out that there was a footpath that leads to the Cape Matapan lighthouse. The walk starts at a small bay where we were parked. At the beginning, we came across of some remains of a Roman house, including a beautiful mosaic. After a walk over the dry and particularly bare cape, we arrived at a lighthouse from 1822 with a magnificent view all around. We were here at the most southernmost point of the Mani and thus of the entire European mainland.
This point is also called Cape Matapan.
To avoid hiking in all the heat of the day, we set out early. How beautiful it was to take this walk in the morning. A walk that wasn't exactly easy at times, but definitely worth it. Because of all the unpaved roads we had driven over the past few weeks, it looked like one of the rear wheels was no longer fully alight, so we decided to have it checked at the first best garage we came across.
After driving past the orange fields, we drove to the camper place high on top of a mountain.
Reaching the Cape was a challenge for us down-to-earth Dutch. The route turned out to be partly unpaved with hairpin bends and sometimes so narrow that you should not encounter oncoming traffic while driving uphill and also downhill, with slopes of 10%. We passed a village with beautiful white houses, and when we arrived there was a warning sign for the harbor. In the end, it was definitely worth it and a beautiful place to visit. Away from civilization, quiet and a beautiful starry sky at night.
Since there is no restaurant to be seen anywhere here, we bought some typical meals with Greece flavor in advance and prepared them here. And what I found so beautiful here is there is no light pollution, so it was wonderful to photograph a starry night. We also found another nice overnight stay at a small harbor, but we wanted to get some groceries at the local supermarket first. From this supermarket we followed the Google Maps to this little harbor. Only the road towards it got narrower and narrower. We even stopped to see if we entered something wrong, but it turned out to be correct after all. And what surprised us was there was quite a big camper parked here. Afterwards it turned out we could have taken a different road also.
We felt blessed with this peaceful spot, partly because of the view. A place with a golden edge. Thanks to the community. Great to be here, and we had another very peaceful night.
A relic of World War II. Too bad that since the year 2025 the provisions for camper parking in Greece have changed so much that campervans are probably no longer allowed in places like this.
One of the great things about having a campervan is also that you can just eat your breakfast in a roadside or waterfront car park with this great view, but that too seems to be a thing of the past in Greece for now. While we are in Greece, we also wanted to visit the current city of Corinth. It was very busy in the city, but fortunately we found this paid car park where the car was guarded. As you can see, we were here in the run-up to Christmas, and all the shops were already filled with Christmas decorations. We also paid a visit to this church. Since we wanted to use several facilities and also do some laundry, we had checked into the campsite here. What for us was very special, that we could use the menu in the restaurant. Once ordered, the meal turned out to be delivered by scooter and served in the restaurant. The restaurant had a very nice view from the first floor. But because of the time of the year, it was not very warm there, and even the waitress was wearing a scarf and had a nice warm coat. Visiting the city of Corinth for us also meant visiting the famous canal. The Strait Canal is 6 kilometers long, 23 meters wide and 8 meters deep. The bridges over the canal are 70 meters above the water level. The canal shortened shipping routes between the Gulf of Corinth and the Ionian Sea by 350 kilometers and was completed in 1893.
And here was our last night in Greece, a rainy parking lot, and tomorrow we have to get up early to drive the long way home.
Our time in Greece was almost over. As you can see from the map, by now we were driving a bit more northwards, but we definitely wanted to visit the city of Skopje, the capital of Northern Macedonia. Skopje is a city with a very rich and long history. Also, some very famous people were born in the city, including Mother Teresa. Now we had heard about the old bazaar in Skopje and that you could eat kebabs there. So we went looking and, as you can see, we had found it. What struck us while visiting Skopje is that there are so many statues in the old city. This is certainly due to the rich history this city has. We certainly feasted our eyes.
This is the statue of Alexander the Great, also born in Skopje.
Interestingly, Skopje is known as the City of Statues. A major earthquake in 1963 destroyed most of the city's historical monuments. In fact, about 80% of the city was destroyed. Some 40 years later, the government launched a controversial project to repopulate the city with statues. And when we wanted to drive out of the city after a long visit, the traffic was at a standstill. Fortunately, there was a man directing all the traffic at this very busy intersection.
And with this visit to Skopje, we left the northern Macedonia and drove into Montenegro. A license plate of a car of Montenegro. You could already see in the previous image the mountaintops were snow white. As we went higher up the mountains, It got wider and wider, and the snow got thicker and thicker, up to almost 30 centimeters thick. So we shot a lot of pictures. Via toll routes, we drove on to Croatia, to the place Dubrovnik. We end up to a very small but tiny and pretty campsite. Within 2 minutes walk to this lake. Very beautiful. After hours of driving in the rain, we reached Slovenia, where we arrived in the dark. We parked our car in the opposite of the train station. We walked through the city and we went to bed. After a quiet night and an early start of the day, we went off for Austria. It is a very long route with several stops. We drove through the Alps with beautiful views. We drove on until Germany. Our van has had to endure a lot, especially with all the rain, snow and salt. And this is where we stopped. Haus Alpenblick, with a view over the Alps and with a nice Greek restaurant, which was well rated by Google. So we end this episode here. If you watched it this far, we thank you very much for watching, and hopefully until next time.